Dear Bungie, I have another idea for an addition to the monster slaying game of Destiny 2. This time, I've thought of an exotic rocket launcher, and I call it the Accumulation of Devastation in Exponential Utilization, or A.D.I.E.U for short. The exotic perk of such a weapon is this: the weapon fires a single, slow-moving singularity that grows in power and size as it damages enemies. By slow moving, I mean that it should travel at the speed, if not somewhat slower, than a Warlock's Slova bomb. Now this is not a portable Nova bomb rocket, although I must admit that would make for a nice exotic weapon. No, this fires a singularity that moves constantly and slowly in the direction fired and does not explode on impact, but rather passes through combatants, damaging them when they enter its mass. Consider also letting the weapon's ordnances pass through walls. A weapon that can shoot through walls sounds a little overpowered at first until I describe some of its shortcomings. The shooting through walls is really a bonus. It's not the main feature of this weapon. The main feature is the singularity. Given the fact that it's a heavy weapon, which it inherits from being a rocket launcher, with one in the chamber, which fires around at such slow speeds, in order to balance this weapon, its initial damage will naturally be quite high. But I haven't finished explaining what it does. The singularity, as it slowly travels after being fired, grows in size and power with every enemy it passes through. This means that if it is masterfully aimed and fired into a crowd of enemies, the singularity will be massive and do high amounts of damage after passing through this aforementioned crowd of enemies. The potential damage this weapon should be capable of is immense, so much so that when looking at what it's capable of in raw damage, some might think it's easily too powerful, making endgame content like raid bosses melt in an instant. Not so. Let me explain why. This weapon has an extremely high potential damage output. It needs to, but this potential can seldom be reached in a meaningful way. Let me explain. In order for the singularity to achieve its potential of great size and damage, it must pass through enemies to accumulate its size and mass, and damage. There are very few instances in Destiny 2 where the singularity could travel in one straight line and accumulate that much power. Usually, these instances are a swarm of trash mobs, such as Thrall. In such a situation, the singularity will become quite powerful and large, yes, but no enemies of significance are the target in this situation, only trash mobs. There are very few instances that a player will actually be able to utilize the potential of this weapon against an enemy boss. Even then, it is extremely unlikely that the player can even reach the upper heights of this weapon's potential. So it has a high potential that can seldom be reached. So why even add such an exotic if it would be so rare and difficult to achieve its potential, to achieve a specific design goal? This is an exotic that defines a playstyle, which I believe I've heard Bungie enjoys. The playstyle this exotic would foster would be one in which the player bides his or her time and tries to wrangle the enemies into a straight line in which they can make the most out of the exotic perk of this weapon. A coordinated team could try to hurt enemies to make it more effective, but then that team isn't focusing on other things that they could be focusing on, and it's really a trade-off, especially the time it takes for this weapon. Is it more powerful than other strategies? Sure, it's maybe just one shot that does a lot of damage, but it takes a lot of time to get that one shot to actually matter. So how about Cease in the Crucible? It will likely be difficult to utilize in the Crucible. For one, it's a heavy weapon, meaning it can't be used for the majority of a match, and it's also an exotic, meaning that many players would rather equip an exotic in their primary or energy slots to get more frequent use out of their chosen exotic. On top of that, this weapon will be hard to hit opponents with, as the single projectile is slow and predictable in trajectory. To counteract these shortcomings, this weapon will need high initial damage, even before the singularity is powered. In the Crucible, it's essentially a rocket launcher that is frustratingly slow and can't be relied upon for splash damage. You have to get direct hits, and it's super slow, so it's easy to dodge and it's easy to see coming. Its ability to pass through walls and guardians alike would help alleviate these shortcomings. And if it did hit someone, that someone would need to instantly perish to balance out this weapon. I can't see this weapon being too popular in PvP, which is perhaps a strike against it. I suppose it could be used like a shotgun. Very close ranges instantly melt someone out of their super, I suppose. Now to the design. I came up with this weapon back in Destiny 1, inspired by leaked images of Wardcliffe Coil. Although Wardcliffe Coil functions very differently than how I expected, the cosmetic aspect of Wardcliffe Coil, shaped how I imagined the rocket launcher A.D.I.E.U might look. As for how it feels to the player to move around, switch to and reload, I continuously picture Thunder Cannon from Call of Duty Zombies. A large machine, still rough around the edges, that's heavy and cumbersome, but makes up for the shortcomings when fired. As for the projectile, it would look like a slow Nova bomb, although initially smaller, unless it grows via its exotic perk. So, in conclusion, that's my idea. Exotic rocket launcher named the accumulation of devastation and exponential utilization. A one-in-the-chamber weapon that fires a slow-moving singularity that grows in size and damage as it passes through enemies. It'd be hard to utilize effectively, but I believe it would be rather fun and well rewarding to actually use effectively. I hope you like it. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and I'll make more like it.